When the Nostromo lands on LFE 426 in response to a distress beacon, the crew find a derelict alien ship with a cargo of alien eggs. Unfortunately, one of the eggs hatches and a parasitic alien latches itself to the face of crew member Kane. When the rest of the crew bring him back to the Nostromo, Kane unfortunately dies, giving birth to a new alien creature that had been hiding in his chest. The new alien creature quickly reached maturity and went on to kill the crew one by one until only Ripley remained. With a combination of good survival skills and a little bit of luck, Ripley was able to survive her ordeal and live to tell her story. Unfortunately, Ripley would be forced to face the aliens again later on in her life. With how deadly this creature proved to be, it's no wonder that people would have so many questions about what we would later come to call the Xenomorph. One of those questions is where the eggs aboard the Derelict came from. Good day everybody, Lantis here, and in this video we're going to answer that question. You may wonder where all of the alien eggs came from, and how they were transported into the cargo hold of the derelict spacecraft. One possibility is that the aliens aboard the spacecraft found the eggs on some random planet and decided to take a few samples. And by a few samples, I mean a few thousand samples. Which was a pretty big mistake in the end. Another possibility is that the eggs were laid there by whatever alien came popping out of the chest of the Space Jockey, whose dead body we see when the crew members from the Nostromo are exploring the pilot room of the derelict spacecraft. This would explain why the Xenomorph shares many physical characteristics with the Space Jockey, like the biomechanical tubing and wires, and also the bone-like structures. However, we can see that there is a blue field over the eggs, like some sort of stasis or preservation field, to keep the eggs from hatching or rotting away. If the fossilized remains of the alien pilot are anything to go by, the eggs are probably thousands of years old, thus indicating they were placed there by beings of higher intelligence, or at least of human intelligence anyway, which reinforces the first option, where the aliens aboard the spacecraft found the eggs and placed them in the cargo hold. However, that leaves a plot hole of why all xenomorphs have similar characteristics to the Space Jockey. Whichever option we go with, there's always a plot hole or two to suck out the atmosphere of that spaceship. Luckily, I have a theory on why there are so many eggs, why they're underneath a blue stasis field, and why they share so many characteristics with the Space Jockey and with the rest of the derelict spacecraft. Now this is the part where we see the image that inspired the entirety of this video. One day, while I was looking at concept art that H.R. Giger made for the Alien movie, I stumbled across this image. Concept art of a mural that was supposed to appear in the derelict ship. However, for whatever reason, they decided not to include it in the movie. All I can say is, it's beautiful. I remembered seeing this before as a kid. Back then I was so mesmerized by it. It was amazing. What I saw going on the mural, it changed my perception of the alien. And that was when I was just basically a kid. To this day, it is still one of my most favorite pieces of artwork from H.R. Giger. And also one of my favorite concept art images for the Alien movie. Anyways, let's talk about what the mural shows us. First of all, we see a tall, thin figure hanging over everything else. This tall, thin figure shares many similar characteristics with the Xenomorphs, leading me to believe that this might be a representation of a fully grown Xenomorph. Right below the figure is a depiction of an alien egg with the facehugger still inside of it. And right below that, another depiction of two figures with the egg. The egg is now open, and one of the figures is lying down in a sacrificial position, just like the Aztecs did in the first AVP film. The figure seems to be letting himself be overtaken by the facehugger, while the other figure looks on. And finally, in the last depiction, we can see the figure laying down with a dead facehugger by him and a chestburster being born. In the background, between all of the depictions, are a series of symbols, though I have no idea what they mean. If you look closely enough, you can see a triangle-like shape protruding from the belly and ending at the extended arm and leg of the overhanging figure. All of the other depictions are within this triangle. So what does any of this mean? Well, I believe the mural depicts the entirety of the Xenomorph life cycle and its reproduction. Starting with the egg, then moving on to the facehugger impregnating a host, then moving on to the birth of the chestburster, and finally the fully grown Xenomorph, as the figure hanging over the whole thing. There is also the triangle, which I believe is a representation of the pyramid or egg silo that the eggs were supposed to be found in before they cut the idea from the movie. One more thing to note are the smaller figures around the egg and giving birth to a chestburster. They are actually humanoid aliens wearing biomechanical spacesuits, and we can see more of them in other alien concept art. Like I said before, the mural depicts the entirety of the Xenomorph life cycle and its reproduction. If you take a look at the tall overarching figure, you can see a clear spot in the middle of its torso, right above the unhatched egg. With its placement on the figure's torso and the unhatched egg right below it, I believe that this could be a representation of a womb, where the egg is developed, or an organ that produces the material that makes up an egg. And we can see the same smooth spot on the belly of the adult Xenomorph. So the mural could be showing how each Xenomorph drone could reproduce via a process called egg morphing. In the original Alien film, there is a deleted scene where Ripley comes across the cocooned bodies of Brett and Dallas. While Dallas is still alive, Brett was unfortunately killed by the alien earlier on. And we can now see what the alien did with his dead body. And if we take a closer look at his body, we can see it looks more digested than it does rotten. And the cocoon his body is stored in is starting to take on a more oval-like shape, an egg-like shape. This has led to the creation of the egg morphing theory. The theory states that the xenomorph can take a dead or potentially alive host and infect them with a virus or something worse that will turn them into an egg. So it appears that that spot is actually a pouch that holds some sort of substance that the xenomorph can use to infect a host and turn them into another egg. It is theorized that egg morphing is the way the xenomorph reproduced before James Cameron introduced the alien queen in his sequel film, Aliens. However, this doesn't explain how thousands of eggs got into the cargo hold. What does is the figure of the xenomorph itself. It is bent over, with its arms and legs reaching all the way to the bottom, thus giving it the shape of a horseshoe. If you haven't figured it out already, the mural isn't depicting an adult xenomorph. It's depicting the derelict ship itself, which leads me to believe that the derelict ship created the eggs. If you take a closer look at concept art of what appears to be a wall of the cargo hold, you'll see developing alien eggs sliding down the wall into what appears to be an incubation machine. Then, when the alien eggs are done developing, the incubation machine will drop them onto the floor down below. So it appears that the derelict ship can print or grow alien eggs on a massive scale, like a 3D printer or an assembly line, but for alien eggs. This supports the theory that the xenomorph is a bioweapon. If we take a look at the design of the xenomorph, we can see it has a biomechanical aesthetic throughout its whole body. Like Maria from the movie Metropolis, but made of dark translucent flesh instead of metal. Tall and thin, without a single bulge of muscle or fat. Perfectly symmetrical, like its body was made with straight lines. And as an impulsive scientist once said, God doesn't build in straight lines. So the xenomorph most likely didn't evolve naturally, or if it did, it was genetically modified, with its natural form being the base of the humanoid alien's perfect weapon. And considering the xenomorph is a bioweapon, I don't think it was meant to reproduce at all. The humanoid aliens that engineered the xenomorphs wanted to keep it under control, wanted to keep it from overpopulating the planet that they were targeting. And if the director commentary is to be believed, then the xenomorph was slowly dying throughout the events of the original Alien movie. Basically, once the xenomorphs were done with their genocidal work, they would die off, and the alien engineers would move in to start a new colony, without the threat of an accidental exposure to a facehugger. However, things didn't go as planned. As a famous, sexy chaotician once said, life finds a way. And the xenomorphs finally found a way to reproduce, through the complicated process of egg morphing. This could explain how the Space Jockey died. Looking at its dead body, we know that it got chest bursted. However, we don't know how it got impregnated. With egg morphing in mind, it's safe to assume that the xenomorphs would have turned some of the planet's inhabitants into new eggs. the alien engineers wouldn't know about these eggs and would probably come down to the planet to start a colony, thinking it's safe. When these colonists came across the alien eggs, they would be attacked by facehuggers. And one of the facehuggers probably got on the derelict ship before it left the planet again. And then it impregnated the Space Jockey, which would eventually lead to the Space Jockey's death and the derelict ship crashing on LV-426. Long story short, the Xenomorph is a bioweapon, a dangerous weapon of death that managed to overcome the control of the humanoid aliens that created them, and potentially wipe all of them out. Anyways, before we continue on, I wanted to talk about certain details of the Nostromo that I find interesting. First of all, the Nostromo has an AI system called Mother, thus making it the figurative mother of the crew. The Derelict is literally the mother of thousands of alien eggs. Next, we have the fact that both the Nostromo and the Derelict are cargo ships, carrying their precious cargo to their destination. Then, we have the emergency helmets sitting on top of the chairs in the bridge of the ship, which is similar to the way the Space Jockey's helmet is part of the chair that it is sitting in. And finally, we have the main control room of the Nostromo, located in the middle of the ship. A place where you can directly communicate with the Mother AI system aboard the ship, which is parallel to the pilot's room of the Derelict ship. So it's likely that the Space Jockey uses its chair to not just pilot the ship, but also communicate with the ship, which is most likely alive due to how biological and organic the whole ship looks. A living ship with a mind of its own, similar to the AI Mother aboard the Nostromo. All these similarities between the two ships leads me to believe that the Derelict and the Nostromo are actually the same ship, metaphorically. Basically, the Nostromo is an analogy of the Derelict. We were meant to take details about the Nostromo and apply them to the Derelict in order to find out its true purpose, which was to create the alien eggs, then deposit them on whatever planet was chosen. Now there's one more detail about the Nostromo that I believe can be applied to the Derelict, and it's the fact that one of the crew members was secretly an android, sent by the company to spy on the rest of the crewmates, and also to complete Special Order 937. Its priority being to bring a living alien specimen back to the company for study. This serves as a really neat twist 3/4 of the way through the movie, right before the climax. However, it also serves as another parallel with the Derelict. I believe this answers one of the biggest questions about the Derelict itself. What is the Space Jockey? If we take a look at the Space Jockey, we can see that its appearance is different from what we see of the humanoid aliens in the rest of the concept art and the mural. While they share the same biomechanical aesthetic, the other aliens aboard the ship are far smaller and more humanoid than the Space Jockey. This leads me to believe that they are actually two separate species, unlike what was shown in Prometheus. Now, most other theorists believe that the Space Jockey is a higher form of being, a godlike figure worshipped by the other humanoid aliens. However, I have my own idea about the Space Jockey. If we take a look at the pilot chair, we can see that the Space Jockey is fused to it. It doesn't look like his head or arms or any other part of him can move around. And there doesn't appear to be any space for his legs that isn't being taken up by the machinery of the chair. Next, if we take a look at the platform that the chair is on, we can see that there is no smooth floor that the Space Jockey could walk on if it had legs. The whole thing is covered in biomechanical ridges and tubes. And finally, if we take a look at the rest of the ship, we can see that there is no space for the Space Jockey to fit through except for the cargo hold or egg room. So I'm almost certain that the Space Jockey wouldn't be able to leave the chair even if it wanted to. Which leads me to question, why would a godlike being choose to live the rest of its life fused to a chair? They wouldn't. It just doesn't make any sense. And with all the evidence that I've gathered so far, I conclude that the Space Jockey is an android, built or grown by the other humanoid aliens to pilot the ship. Which is why it's called the Space Jockey, because its name is an analogy to the term desk jockey, term used to describe an office worker who sits at their desk all day. So you can see the similarities between somebody who sits at their desk all the time doing office work and an alien being fused to a pilot chair flying a ship all the time. And this serves as a parallel with the android aboard the Nostromo, because nothing with even a remote amount of free will would volunteer to be fused to a chair for the rest of its life. So to sum everything up, the android that's aboard the Nostromo is an analogy to the Space Jockey, who is also an android, a biomechanical android. Very similar to the Xenomorphs, but instead of bursting out of somebody and killing everybody else, it is simply grown out of its own chair. And if you're wondering why it's so big, then take a look at the power loader from Aliens. Its large size allows it to carry large heavy objects and move them around. So the Space Jockey is that large so it can properly operate the large pilot chair and pilot the large ship. Well, there you have it. The Derelict creates the alien eggs. The Space Jockey is a large android that is fused with its chair. The Nostromo is an analogy for the Derelict Ship. And the Xenomorph is a renegade bioweapon that potentially wiped out its creators. So, if you liked the video, hit the like button. If you want to get notified when future theories come out, hit the subscribe button and click the notification bell. And if you dislike the video, you can dislike it. Or criticize it in the comments section. I do appreciate constructive criticism. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video and have a great rest of your day.
Yeah? Oh! It changes depending on the skin. God damn!